Good morning and hello to all the Northaveners out there. Welcome to Northaven Voices. My name is Diane Merrell and I'm a part of the Connect team, and today I have the great pleasure and honor to visit with Margaret Nicholson. Margaret's a longtime member of Northaven and is one of those people that is responsible for keeping us going. She does a myriad of volunteer jobs behind the scenes, and I know personally that she gives so much to our church, and we just thank you for that. Margaret, how are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing really well, thanks.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for being here with us. Okay, you ready? Here we go.
Ready.
All right, let's start with the basics. Can you tell us, please, a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you were born and raised, where you went to school, family, career, all that, just a basic kind of rundown on you.
Okay. Well, I was born and grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I had a wonderful childhood, and I have a younger sister who's 3 years younger than I am, and a younger brother who's 14 years younger than I am.
Wow. 14 years. Surprise.
Yeah. So it was, almost two generations of in our family. But my sister now lives in Atlanta, and my brother still lives in Shreveport, and my mother is still living and is 96. Nice. And he is kind of her primary caregiver.
Aww.
And my father died when in 1988, and actually today is his birthday. He died of cancer, and I just am very happy that he lived to see both of my sons.
Oh.
So he died early, but at least he had had a chance to be with them. I have two sons. My older son lives in Vietnam. He
I didn't know that.
married a Vietnamese woman whom he met in Houston when they were both living there. And after they married, he moved there. They are currently divorced, but he has decided to stay in Vietnam with periodic thoughts about moving back to the States, but nothing very definitive yet.
Well, how long has he been there?
He's been there, I'm going to say 15 years.
Oh, wow. So that's home.
Yeah. He loves the Vietnamese culture, and he just seems to, have found a spot he loves. So.
Yeah. That's all we can do for our kids, right?
Yeah, I'm glad for that. I'm sorry that it's so far away. We've been to see him once. He comes home periodically, not very often, but and we've been to visit once, which was a wonderful trip to Vietnam.
I bet.
And it was wonderful having him there because he speaks Vietnamese. And,
oh wow, yeah. And your younger son?
Then my younger son lives in Michigan. He worked as a journalist for a while, and his last job was as a staff writer at the Dallas Observer. And then he decided he wanted to go to law school, so he went to the University of Michigan and is still there. They moved up there, and they have 3 little boys.
Aww.
Little boys, I say, they're growing so fast. One's 12, one's 9, and one's 2.5.
Aww.
So, they're far away too, but we get back and forth.
Yeah, that's at least a little.
It's a little more reachable than Vietnam. Than Vietnam. So that's kind of my current family situation right now. And
where'd you go to school, Margaret?
Going back to that, I went my freshman year to Agnes Scott, which is a women's college in Decatur, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. And then I transferred my sophomore year to SMU, which is what brought me to Dallas. I had friends.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, how you got here.
Yeah. And so I finished at SMU. I majored in psychology and French, and didn't know what I was going to do with either one of those. But I sort of thought, maybe I would do something with my French, but I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. And I, just there wasn't much else to do. So I took, I wanted to take social work classes when I was in college, but SMU didn't have any social work programs. So I decided to take whatever the state exam is for civil service jobs. Mm-hmm. And I had, growing up, my aunt was a social worker, lived in Shreveport. I was close to her, and she was just different than most of my parents' contemporaries. She was, right, just a more kind of progressive thinker, and worked where a lot of my parents' my mother's friends, didn't work, and just worked at home.
A bit ahead of time.
Yeah. So I had always been interested in social work, and so after I took the state exam, I took a job in Children's Protective Services and started my social work career. And I decided, that I needed to try to work to do something to decide if that's what I wanted to do. And I did. It was kind of a baptism by fire,
Yeah, I'm sure.
A little bit of a naive, idealistic, recent college graduate, but I had really good mentorship in my initial work in protective services. And so I got a stipend and went back to graduate school at UTA and got my master's in social work. And since it was a stipend, you needed to go back and sort of pay off your loans. And so I worked here in Dallas and met Carol Carthy there in my work in Children's Protective Services. Mm-hmm. And not everybody who's around now knew Carol, but, she was this wonderful person who was such a good role model for all of us, a disabled person who, achieved so much and was just such a wonderful influence and good friend. And one of the reasons that I knew about Northaven eventually. So then I met Gary, my husband Gary, when after SMU, he went to SMU too. He graduated the year before I did. And we met on a blind date through mutual friends.
Love that.
And then got married, and I started graduate school the year we got married.
Oh, wow. You had your plate full.
Yeah, but it was nice. I was lucky to be able to have the stipend where I could go full time. Yes. I know a lot of people who do graduate school, after they've been working a while, have to keep working. And that was really a blessing. So, and then in the early 80s, we moved to Houston because of Gary's job, and we lived in Houston for 4 years. And I was a bit burned out with Children's Protective Services. It's very emotionally draining, and it's one of those things where they need good, experienced people, but it's hard to keep good, experienced people because it's just so
such hard work.
So emotionally taxing.
Yes.
So anyway, I did work in children's services, but I worked for a nonprofit children's agency in Houston, and worked in adoption and mostly in working with birth parents as they were thinking through potential plans about adoption.
Right.
And then we moved back to Dallas in 1984. And again, because of Gary's work. And by that time we had Gordon, our older son, and then I was pregnant with Eric when we moved. And so I stayed home for a few years so I could be with the boys, and that worked out really well.
Yeah.
And then when I was, I guess when my younger son started kindergarten, I wanted to do something. I did some adoption studies, some contract work while I was not working full time. Just a smattering, just to kind of keep my hand in things. And that was interesting. I enjoyed doing that. But then I wanted to do something not more than half time. And I had a friend who worked at the Alzheimer's Association, and they had an opening for a half-time person. So I switched from children's services to geriatrics kind of.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Worked at the Alzheimer's Association for, I guess, about 5 years. And my grandmother, one of my grandmothers, had the typical Alzheimer's progression. They never diagnosed her with Alzheimer's. They just said dementia because they didn't really diagnose Alzheimer's then. So, but I had, an affinity for that, that work with, around that disease, which is so terrible.
Yes. Yes.
And so prolonged. And, so that was an interesting switch. And then after that, I went to, work for the Baylor Senior Health Centers. And that was a medical setting where there was a clinical pharmacist, a social worker, and a dietitian, all in a medical setting to sort of assess and treat seniors. And so that's where I finished my career. The Baylor Senior Health Centers kind of went out of business, but the clinic sort of morphed, or the one I was with sort of morphed into still a medical setting. The services weren't, the social worker was the only one that really remained of the three additional, the dietitian and the pharmacist both sort of went by the wayside.
And you retired fairly recently, right?
I did. I've been retired almost 3 years.
Wow.
And I have welcomed that. I didn't know. I thought, I liked what I did. And I thought, I didn't really know what I would do when I retired. I just liked working. And I really probably overworked. I probably my work-life balance might not have been so great.
Might not have been perfect, but
but in retirement, I really have found that there's lots I want to do, and
that's great.
More time to do it, more relaxed, and it's just.
You caught up, right?
A new beginning.
You caught up on the life balance.
Yeah, right. I'm working on that. Yeah, right. The other way.
Well, I want to go back to the one thing you said, which is one of the things I wanted to ask you anyway, and that is how you came to Northaven and why Northaven, and how you've been at Northaven and all those things.
I grew up in the Episcopal Church. And the church I went to was a small downtown church that was kind of trying to keep going after there had been an exodus to the suburbs. Another, a church that had split off and the downtown church remained. And that's where my family went. And there weren't any youth programs. There was Sunday school, but there weren't any youth programs. And so I had friends who went to the Methodist church, and I started going to MYF with them. So I had some knowledge and participation in the Methodist church, some familiarity with it.
Yeah.
When Gary and I got married, he had gone growing up to a non-denominational church, and we were trying to kind of figure out where to go. So we sort of decided that we would try Methodism, Methodist churches. And right before we moved to Houston, we were going to the First Methodist Church downtown.
Right.
And just, during college, I didn't go to church much. I didn't think much about it, kind of,
like 99%.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And just, just thought, I don't know if I'll get back to it or not.
Right.
But as, with children coming, and even before that, we moved to Houston, and in Houston, we found a wonderful church, Bearing United Methodist, which is a reconciling congregation as well. And that was a wonderful connection for us. And when we moved back, the boys were little, and our first attempts to go to church, I just had to go to the closest church, because getting up and out in the morning, I don't know. It was
with
just
3 boys. Are you kidding me?
No, just 2.
2 at the time. That was enough.
Believe me, I admire people who have 3. That was just me, We just
totally get it.
So we went to First Methodist Richardson, which was near where we lived. It's like, where can we get in 10 minutes? And that was it. So we went, and it is not the church. We just didn't ever get involved in anything. And it felt they had, 2 morning services that were right next to each other, and it just sort of felt like going to the movies, that one crowd would come out and another crowd would go in, and the kids were in Sunday school while we were in church. So we just never really got connected there, and we were just thinking, well, maybe we can make the effort and go a little further and expand our
cast a bit wider.
And that's when Northaven kind of came into play, because Carol Carsey, I knew her there, and we had gone to a service or 2 there before, and went, and it just seemed like a good fit, and it had so much in common with the church that we had gone to in Houston. And what appealed to me then, and has always appealed to me, is the progressive social justice and the people. It's Northaven just has so many admirable people that just it's just amazing. And not to mention the music and the pastors, and it's just
total package.
So it once we got there, we felt like we had arrived at where we needed to be.
Right.
And the boys had great Sunday school teachers and lots of attention, and I didn't really take advantage of all the things that Northaven had to offer. As I say, my work-life balance wasn't, it was sort of tilted towards work. But since retirement, I've just been, I don't know, when I was working, getting to Sunday school was just, there weren't enough hours in the weekend, and I just never, always intended to, but never made it. But, joining a Sunday school class has been a wonderful experience for me. What we've studied and the people in the class. And
full disclaimer, we're in the same Sunday school class.
Yeah.
For all of you out there, we go to J3. Put in
and that's kind of that's great. And
it's been wonderful having you participate with it. I mean, it's a great class, and you've definitely added to it. So
more time to to do that sort of thing. Taking some of the classes, the Enneagram class, and just took a class with Ben Marshall, which I'd never done, and thought, wow, what a great teacher.
Yes.
And and this is kind of a time when I'm just a little more contemplative, I guess, than I have been before.
Well, you have a bit more time to be.
Yeah. So that's
that time is required. And when you're juggling as many things as you did, that's absolutely right. Well, so how long have you and Gary been members of Northaven?
I think we joined, I can't say the exact year, but it was the late 1980s, about 1988, probably.
Yeah.
That's long time ago.
Long time. That's great. That's great. Well, okay, let's switch gears. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to do rapid fire.
Okay.
Oh,
okay. I'm ready.
Not a test. There's no wrong answer.
Okay.
But I find these are things that I love to know about people. Okay. What brings you joy, Margaret?
My family, my grandchildren. I love everything French, the language.
That's a passion, right?
Enjoyed studying that, and nature.
Yeah. Okay. Along those lines, where's your favorite place to go and why? Like to travel to or visit? Whatever.
That's a good question. I've been to France once when I was in one of the summers I was in college, and that's my favorite place to go, except I just haven't been very often. We had a trip planned that got canceled because of COVID. And so that's my goal, to go back. But I've loved lots of places, Santa Fe, Boston, just visiting new places.
A little bit of adventure. Okay. What's your happiest memory?
Oh, well.
Slipped one in there on you.
Yeah, I guess when my kids were born.
Yeah.
Gordon's, our older son's adopted, and the day we adopted him was just glorious. And when Eric was born, I think that.
Yeah. Glorious. That's a perfect word.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Tell me something that no one would know about you, except maybe your nearest and dearest, that might surprise people.
Well,
like, you have a hidden talent.
Do I have a what?
A hidden talent? Do you joke?
Oh, I wish. If I had one, I would not hide it. Well, when I was in, I guess one of the summers when I was in college, I worked on, in New York City, lived in, subleased an apartment for the summer with another college student, and worked on a converted ferry that went up the East River into the Bay and back as a day trip for people from recreation centers and senior centers in Manhattan.
Aww.
And
Oh,
it was really cool. And it was just sort of, a unique job. The ferry had been converted, so it had to, it had places, we had little arts and crafts activities and passed out lunches. And there was a social worker on board to help people, during the journey. But it was pushed, it didn't have a motor anymore. It just was pushed by a tugboat out of the East River. And these were people who probably hadn't been, too far out of their neighborhoods, most of their lives.
Absolutely.
And there were children and elderly people, and it was just really fun. And
that was very cool.
Kind of unique.
Yeah.
Kind of unique, and actually also a wonderful opportunity to be in New York. Went to a couple of plays and heard Leonard Bernstein at the Lincoln Center. And,
oh my gosh. Fabulous.
Yeah. So that
was once in a lifetime type thing.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay. How about a guilty pleasure? Like mine's ice cream.
Well, I was going to say ice cream every night before I go to bed.
I can't help it. I just can't. I can't help it. What? And then we'll wrap it up. But because I could sit here and talk to you all day, but the boss over here is giving me a sign. What do you hope for our church and our community, Margaret?
When you first said that, I think what came to my mind was, I hope our light will shine. I just think that the front of the church and God is love plastered on the front of the church. I just hope people get that message, and that we can disseminate that message, and that we can help address some of the challenges of this day and time, social justice wise. Just keep up the good work.
Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, thank you for taking this time out of your busy day to visit with me. And I have loved it. I've loved finding out all these little nuggets about you that I didn't know. This has been great, Margaret. And thank you again for what you do for Northaven, that keeps, the numbers and the reports and all the technical stuff that, is important, that no one ever sees. So thank you.
We have our little niche.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'll see you Sunday.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Diane.
Thanks, Margaret. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.